wants to be a knight. Sink or swim, hero. I'm putting a pool table in your bedroom and your mother on it.
Sounds like both of you have dreams that won't come true.
Crossing Swords is the story of Patrick, this little peg figure here, and his journey to become a squire. The deeper he gets, the more he realizes that everything's just completely screwed up.
This is a cesspool.
A cesspool of shrimp cocktail.
I've never really seen any kind of stop animation like this. It's certainly not Gumby. But the Lego movie, that's for damn sure.
The show is meant to be really fun and colorful, but in an adult way where there's a lot of mayhem.
This show is unique because it's actually stop motion as opposed to most other animation, which is now all computer generated.
Stop motion, it's a little bit janky and a little bit stylized. And Patrick, he has a lot of imperfections, and I feel like together they go hand in hand.
Why do we have to strip for this?
Who cares? Now line up according to Bulge.
There's something nostalgic about watching it, and they're super funny, too.
Just stare at their In this case, it's perfectly appropriate.
I found it really funny and ridiculous and dirty and surprising as well.
The comedy of Crossing Swords is, I'd say, like Mel Brooks on bath salts.
Broth, did you find Blossom?
No, but I did find a lot of drugs.
I am a big fan of filthy comedy.
He threw mud in my face!
That was not mud.
We have an incredible voice cast who are really elevating what's on the page.
We just played around until we found something that sounded like it would come out of this little guy.
My girlfriend's evil and I'm covered in I'm working through some residual anger.
It's like these toys are coming to life.
You take your favorite fantasy stories and then just add a ridiculous twist.
You have these play school figurines saying,
Holy cracker!
and they're all each other. It's fantastic.
Welcome to Comic-Con at Home 2020. My name is Scott Mantz. I'll be moderating today's panel for Crossing Swords. The hit series is streaming right now on Hulu, and it is funny as hell. Hope you're all doing well and holding up in this crazy year. So let's have a great conversation about Crossing Swords. And please welcome, we got a great panel. Let's start by welcoming creator, writer, director, John Harvatine IV. How you doing, Harv?
Hey, how we doing? Yeah, good. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Please welcome creator, writer, Tom Root. Hi, Tom.
Hello. Good to be here.
And he plays Ruben in Crossing Swords. Adam Ray. How you doing, Adam?
Hi, Comic-Con. God, I practiced my intro. I already it up. I'm sorry. All right, let's keep moving.
Let's keep moving. Let's move on to Coral Tara Strong. Hi, Tara. Love your woman cave.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to, well, he is just one of my favorite people. I feel like brother from another mother because we have a lot of similar interests, especially in sci-fi. Playing Blinkerquartz, it is Seth Green. Hi, Seth.
That's me. Hi.
Yeah.
As Queen Tulip, the lovely, the talented, the amazing Alanna Ubach. Hello, Alanna.
Yeah.
This is great.
Hello.
We're having fun already. Okay, he plays Broth. Welcome, Adam Paley.
Woo!
And playing Sgt Megan, the lovely, the talented, the amazing, the busiest person in show business, Yvette Nicole Brown. Hi,
Hey,
Yvette.
Scott. Good to see you.
Well, before we get started on season 1, let's just say big congrats on Crossing Swords getting renewed for season 2. How excited? Who's the most excited person on this panel? Raise your hand.
Probably Seth is the most points on it, right?
Yeah.
Let's start with Tom Root. Tom, why is Crossing Swords the perfect show that we need right now?
I think, as you can tell from my background, all of us are in places we'd rather not be right now. And this is a chance to go to a world that looks so colorful and is very much not your spare bedroom. And is full of adventure and excitement and comedy, and my God, I wish I lived there. It's the perfect pandemic entertainment.
Harv, what was it about medieval times? Why medieval times? Why not doing a spoof on superheroes or doing something in outer space? What was it about the medieval times that you felt was right for this raunchy type of comedy?
Yeah, I just thought it's so far back, and it's so ripe of just medieval jokes, and just you can kind of go anywhere with it. The ridiculousness of kings and queens and peasants and all that, it just felt like a fun place to go and play. So what better place to go?
Tara, I want to ask you, when you sort of went in and saw that this was being done practically with stop motion animation, physical characters instead of like CGI, what was your first take on the studio?
Well, I've been to Stupid Buddy before, and Seth knows I'm so blown away by what that place is. It's like the sound stages are incredible. They're all miniature sets that you would see that spare no expense, that look like professional giant sounds. Like somebody put a shrink ray on it and made everything smaller, but not so small that you can't see how meticulous each step is. And, normally we don't get to see anything before. Maybe there's some little storyboards, but to see the live action element and how unbelievably creative it is. It's like, Seth, your studio is like imagination got to run free. And it's so much. And when I was on my tour, I met these girls that are like, oh my God, I drew your mouth. And they had like all the stickers for my mouth. And it's a really collaborative process in general. But being at the studios and seeing how much love goes into every piece is really rewarding.
Seth, I want to ask, what were the challenges to sort of take what you did on Robot Chicken to another level, to make it fresh and to make it even raunchier and funnier?
Well, the hardest thing we had to do was get through the patent office on the shrink ray to be able to get all of these large scale sets and people and devices shrunk down to the scale to be able to animate. That was definitely the biggest challenge. But as far as how to make the show raunchy or unique, so much of that is due to Tom and Harv. The entire aesthetic vision of this thing is Harv's brainchild and Tom's masterwork. So the thing that I had to do was just get out of the way and occasionally say, great idea, guys.
Yvette, before I even heard Sgt Megan talk, I knew it was you immediately. And can you guess why?
I think it was, besides my beautiful hue, I think it was the bun. Was it the bun?
That's right. Yes, it was the bun.
Yeah, I started to do my Sgt Megan and Yvette bun today, and I was like, well, let the hair be free. But yeah, I was actually so delighted to see, because I didn't see what Sgt Megan would look like until I saw the show. And to see that she had my little bun, I hope I inspired that. I meant to ask Tom and Harv if I did, but it was so cool. That was the first character that actually looked like me. It was awesome. It's a peg, but it's me.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, Tom and Harv, were you inspired by Yvette's real look?
Yeah, absolutely. We try to get them into the characters as much as possible. So I think we nailed that one. That's not quite as much.
Sgt Megan, when we were talking about that character early on, we were like, it'd be funny if she was like super aggressive and violent. And our launching point, because we're so old, is the drill sergeant from Police Academy. And so somehow somebody wrote that down and brought us this concept art that looked exactly like the drill sergeant from Police Academy, which, if you'll remember, looks nothing like that. And I think at that point we had cast, and we were like, no, let's bring a little more Yvette into this character.
Oh, thanks, guys.
So yeah, so that's how we got her Sgt Megan.
I love how kick-ass she is, but then she sits back when everyone's getting beat up and destroyed. She takes such pleasure in it.
She enjoys the mayhem, which I didn't know that she was going to enjoy it as much as she does. She's tanning herself while they're in there with Medusa. It's a mess.
But a good mess.
Alanna, what is it about seeing these cute little pay characters, drop the F-bomb, go full frontal, die a horrible bloody death? What makes that even funnier than if this was happening to real people?
Well, I remember being a little kid and being just obsessed with these little peg toys. It was what my mom and dad used to bribe me to go to Save-Ons, right? Back then, there was something called Save-Ons, and it's now CVS. But and they would say, Alanna, if you come with me to Save-Ons, I'll buy you a peg toy. And so that was my motivation to get out of the house. I love these little peg toys, and for the first dialogue, the first line at my audition was, "Have you ever on an 1,800-pound chandelier hastily bolted to the top of a canvas tent?" I was like, I'm in, This is genius. Who talks this way? So I thought, okay, so Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and Madeline Kahn had an orgy. This would perhaps be the offspring, and it is now my second nude scene on camera, and I love my the way they're sculpted, because I'm now 45 and they look like empty wallets. So I'm just so proud of the voice behind this beautiful woman.
Wow. Adam Ray?
Yeah. Like Alanna, you know, my mom didn't have peg toy money, so I had to use my imagination, and but it was, you know, just as effective. But what was your question, Scott? Can I call you Scott?
You can call me Scott, sure.
Go for it.
What was your first impression when you saw the finished product for the first time?
It was honestly speechless, because, you know, again, there's a certain level that Stupid Buddy and Seth, Tom, and John have kind of set, and you know it's going to be incredible, and something that I already can't fathom how they put all this together. But seeing it animated, and once the intro started, and it was like the whole opening sequence, and there was a cold open, it was mind blowing, actually. And I guess I just didn't expect, like, you know, the mouths and the movements to be so in sync to where you really can get lost in the world. And if you smoke enough pot, you can get real lost in the world and forget where you are. But yeah, it was, you know, again, just to like be to watch it and to see, and the voices are everyone's so good that it really, and I think that's, you know, a key element, because that really helps you get lost in the characters and get invested in the characters, which then makes it easy to watch. My character, Ruben, is based on two kids I grew up with in high school, Kenya Tillman and Jesse Mose. Quick shout outs, don't know where they are, but they were the first kids in the 7th grade to smoke cigarettes, wear shirts with no sleeves, and brag about having consensual sex a lot. And this was, 1996? So shout out to those guys.
Wow. Look at you, bring it out. Nice. Adam Paley, I want to ask about, you know, they talked about the collaboration at the top of this conversation. So, you know, when you're doing animation like this, how do you sort of, I know this may sound like a stupid question, but hey, how do you find your character when you're doing a voiceover for an animated character?
I don't think that's a stupid question.
Me either.
Again, a lot of credit to Tom and Harv to like the way that this one worked. They were really collaborative in letting you kind of be as big or as small as you wanted to be, and they kind of reined you in, or maybe they reined me in, and then they sometimes would make you go crazy, and that once you started to work on it and you developed that trust with them, you just kind of knew where you stood and how to find the voice and stuff.
Well, one of the cast members not joining us today is Nicholas Hoult, who plays Patrick. And I just wanted to on the count of 3, I want you all to give a shout out, say, "Hey, Nicholas." Okay, 1, 2, 3.
He will never see that. He will never see that.
I don't think he even owns a computer.
Never see that.
One of the best American accents I've heard on a break.
Yeah, pretty spot on.
I gotta give him the love.
Almost American.
It's really surprising because he's such a hack actor. It's
yeah.
I'm that guy.
Honestly, I love that. I've loved that kid for so long. First thing I saw him in was About a Boy.
Yeah.
And just watching his career evolve as a young 20s into adult performer, I just find him incredible. Whether it's Fury Road or The Great.
I love The Great. I'm halfway through The Great right now. Good.
He's so impressive on so many levels. And then also he's terribly silly in a way I don't think people get to see very often. So
yeah, no clue. So funny.
Yeah. I love that he's getting to explore that on this.
One film that was overlooked of Nicholas. I saw this movie at Sundance a couple of years ago. It's called Rebel in the Rye, and I believe that it's going to be streaming this month on Hulu. He plays J.D. Salinger. It's about obviously the writer of The Catcher in the Rye. But I want to ask.
Now they make the movie version of this. This is wild.
Well, it's about J.D. Salinger. It's not about Holden Caulfield.
Copy. Okay.
So, Tom, I want to ask about Nicholas Hoult. Like, what made him the perfect Patrick?
Well, we had no idea that he was. We were at a point where we were auditioning people, or getting actually lots of auditions from everywhere for the casting, and we heard he was interested, and not only interested, but he wanted to come in because he lives pretty close, and he wanted to just come in and talk about the character and like try out. And we had absolutely no opposition to that, and so he came in and. He didn't know that it was going to be an American character, and I guess he hadn't done an American voice in years, and we sort of sprung it on him. And so, because we're American, we just figure all British people have American accents in their back pockets because that's how the world works. But he had no time to prepare it. And I think because he had no time to prepare, what came out of him was this very kind of halting, vulnerable sounding character. Because he had to pick his way through that accent and really think really hard about it. And it sounded kind of sweet, and that became Patrick almost immediately. And so even later when he got he was very used to doing the American accent on a regular basis, we tried to keep that very open and very vulnerable sounding Patrick. And as soon as we heard it, we knew that he was the guy.
All right, Harv, I got to ask. So I'm watching the show, like 2 technical questions here. One, what was the blood made out of? And second, how big was the Kraken?
Okay, great questions. The blood is a mixture of like epoxy putty that we paint, and it's also hot glue that is like squirted and painted. And sometimes it's KY jelly, and then sometimes clay. It's kind of a mixture of stuff, whatever you need.
Oh, God. What was the jelly budget on this show?
I did not expect KY. I thought he was going to say jam. It looks like jam. It's so good that when you're in it, you're like, ew, even though you know it's not. But now that I know it's KY, I'm back to ew.
Yeah, lots of different materials, depending if we needed to animate every frame a little bit or if we just wanted to drip. Like an example is when in the execution sequence in the second episode, when the head is cut off and it's tossed to the king, and it kind of drips down with the Robin Hood and the hat. That was all KY jelly that was painted.
That was gross.
The Kraken there was a couple different scales. One of them was pretty massive. It was a little bigger than me. It was just, I don't know if you can see my arms, but it was pretty large. And then there was a smaller scale that was just like a little bitty. So 2 different scales.
Alanna, I want to so when you're doing voiceover for animation, do you have any room to sort of go off the cuff to improvise, or is it all, it's animation, I got to stick to the script?
It depends on the project. For something like this, because the dialogue is so specific, it's specific of the time, it's specific of, the storytelling and everything. You really do have to stick to whatever you are reading. And I just trust that the dialogue is what it is. I'm not a writer, so I couldn't possibly come up with anything at the top of my head to that's even comparable to the dialogue in Crossing Swords. I just think it's genius.
Can I just say that Alanna is being very kind and humble right now. I did a show with her for 4 years. She is one of the most brilliant improv people off the top of her head. So I can't let that lie land and float around in the world. I had to snatch that back. It takes nothing from Tom and Harv, who are amazing, and the writers are amazing. But Alanna, you can ad lib like a queen. So
thank you so much. Well,
That's
because
true.
The British accent is actually challenging for me. I tend to go like the Dick Van Dyke route in Mary Poppins. And Fagin, the way, farmers insurance, sorry. And
Is Dick Van Dyke here?
Yes, he is. And so I usually have to go on
Incredibly
YouTube and like
accurate.
watch a Helen Mirren interview before, like 5 minutes before going into the recording booth. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing. But it's just so much fun to do these characters that you would never play on camera, obviously. So that's the beauty of voiceover work.
Yeah, I will piggyback on that answer and just say that too, having the characters so well fleshed out and the world being so specific, for me, like to ad lib, it's way easier when you just have such a firm grasp on the whole world and the dynamic between all the characters, which was, you know, way more than I've ever seen for a show to really have sketched out, like, you know, how everyone kind of related to each other. And so then it was really easy to kind of like, you know, ad lib from one filter and not having to think about like, all right, like, how do I feel about Coral? What's the, you know, the true relationship? And also like Adam said earlier, you know, Tom and John and Seth let us kind of really go for it and use all the weapons at your disposal. And
yes, you have the
back.
liberty to be irreverent. It doesn't have to exactly match with whatever the situation is and stuff. That's the beauty of it.
How about for you, Yvette? You do both. You do live action. You do animation. You know, do you have room for you? Do you have room to improvise in animation?
You know, I do. You know, thankfully, everybody I've ever worked with has been kind enough to say, you know, take a pass and say it the way you would want to say it. I just respect actors so much that I really don't. It's very rare that I'm in a booth and go, well, I just don't feel I'm satisfied with what's on the page. It just really doesn't happen. Like I usually am very happy with what they've given me. I'm always so grateful to have the job because, you know, even being in this panel with all these amazing voice actors, like I'm just shocked that I'm still working in this arena. So I come in and say my lines and get on out of there before they change their mind. So I don't improv that much.
I feel like I can't let that lay.
No, not gonna stick.
You beyond your organic and your acquired talent, your essence is so bright and shiny that you can make anything believable.
Thanks.
She glows.
I have to say that I do improv quite a bit.
We knew that, Adam. We all
yes,
knew it.
and
Sure. I don't want to let that lie.
And full support, Adam. You are one of the most gifted improv performers around.
Thank you. I didn't want anyone not to say it.
Thank you so much.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Adam's answer just now was fully improvised. So there you go.
Actually, unfortunately, Tom wrote that one.
I've heard animators, animation producers talk many times about how if they're doing a scene and they get the voiceover and then they animate the scene and the scene isn't really working, they get to do it again. It's not like live action where like that's it unless you do reshoots. So Tom, was there ever a situation here where you were doing a scene and it just didn't really look right, so you called the actor or the actors back to redo the scene?
Our chances to do that are very limited because we're budgeted so tightly. Like in fact, we try to tell the studio it's just not allowed to do that. And it's true. But like we did get in a situation where like we would get finished animation and it just wasn't getting the story across, and we had to decide, are we going to spend the money to go back on stage and get more? But it usually wasn't about acting. It was about for example, when they go up into the clouds in the wispy world, a giant beanstalk ends up falling through the clouds, destroys their whole world. They all plummet to their death, and it wasn't feeling big enough. And so we put it back up on stage and kept trying to get it bigger and bigger, so that it felt really terrifying and bloody and violent. And but it's really rare that we would call an actor back in.
I was just going to say, usually you have the opportunity to make any changes at an earlier stage. By the time everything is built and physically shooting, it's a little bit harder to budget for an actual reshoot. But because we record so many options and then we marry that as a radio play to storyboards, you can see what the timing of the show is. You can tell where a joke will or will not land. And so hopefully you have the opportunity to address it there without necessarily recording something new. It's very difficult once something is shot to get the chance to reshoot it. There's little things you can do digitally, but only so much.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, congratulations on season 1 being so funny and such, like I said, the movie the series we need right now. And I got to also say that when I interviewed you all at the press day, and I knew that I was doing Comic-Con at Home 2020, I went back and rewatched the first couple episodes. And there is humor that I missed the first time around because the jokes really fly by very fast. Did you have that experience too?
Yes, you have to watch it like 2 or 3 times.
It's one of my favorite parts is that, the joke per minute is just at such a high level and it's just kind of constantly hitting you and you have to, you're laughing and then it's why you should go back to rewatch because there's a lot of, throwaway jokes that are kind of said subtly. Like Broth has a lot of killer lines that are so, brilliantly delivered that are just kind of like, to kind of button their scene or just kind of said under his breath. And those are my favorite moments. And this show has so many of them. So definitely rewatch it.
And there's also a lot of visual comedy. And the second time around, you catch more things. There's so many intricacies and things happening that you miss it the first time because you're so into the story. And then going back and watching. And I wonder all the time, Seth, how you do stuff with the floating objects and the things that, you don't anticipate how you guys are going to handle certain things with the Peg characters. It's really fun to go back and watch.
So cool.
Let's just take a moment to sort of anticipate what we can expect from season 2. So Harv, have you already had some thoughts about a new storyline, new characters that we might see for season 2?
What's our jelly budget for season 2, Harv?
My jelly button is up. Don't worry about it. Well, I'm not sure we can say, but we'll be playing with some knights. I think we can say that. And we'll be redesigning them a little bit, make them look a little more shiny. So that's exciting. Root, what else can we say about the 2?
The one thing we wanted to get in there was Broth and Patrick on horseback or on camelback doing the Lawrence of Arabia shot, the famous desert shot. We're definitely going to wedge that in somewhere.
Can I pitch that they never get good at being squires so Sgt. Megan can keep a job?
I don't think they're ever going to get good at anything.
Well, again, congratulations on season 1 of Crossing Swords and congrats on season 2. And thank you to everyone on this panel, everyone for watching Comic-Con at Home 2020. Again, Crossing Swords is streaming right now on Hulu. If you've seen it, see it again. If you've never seen it, now is the time. Thanks so much, everybody.
Welcome to the next level. I am freaking out.
Me too. We never picked a lunch place.
Next week, mandatory circumcision.
Not me. You've all seen it.
This is the best day of my life.
Nobody look at Mackenzie. She just does it for attention.
Hello, I'm so sorry I can't be with you today, but I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned in to Crossing Swords and made it such a big success. It means, thanks to you, that we get to go and make a season 2, which I'm very excited about because I had such a brilliant time making the show. So thank you. I'll be back as Patrick in season 2. I hope you like it, and I'm looking forward to getting started.